Before independence, Mexico was not a colony. It was the heart of an empire, the Aztec Empire, a civilization of warriors, astronomers, poets, and kings. A world built on stone, blood, and sacred order. A world that believed it would last forever. But forever ended the moment the strangers arrived. In 1519, ships appeared on the eastern horizon, wooden beasts carrying men in metal skins, armed with weapons the Aztecs had never seen. They came from a world across the ocean, driven by hunger for gold, land, and glory. At their head was Hernán Cortés, a man whose ambition was greater than fear, greater than mercy, greater than anything the Aztecs had ever encountered. The Aztecs watched these newcomers with confusion, curiosity, and dread. Some believed they were gods. Others believed they were omens. But no one understood the truth. They were the beginning of the end. Cortés did not arrive alone. He forged alliances with indigenous nations who had suffered under Aztec rule, enemies who saw in the Spaniards a chance for revenge. And beside him stood a woman whose name would echo through history, Malintzin, known as La Malinche, a translator, a strategist, a survivor, caught between two worlds. With her voice, Cortés gained power. With his promises, he gained armies. With his lies, he gained trust. And then he marched toward Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital, a city of floating gardens, towering temples, and shimmering canals. A city more magnificent than anything the Spaniards had ever seen. But admiration did not stop conquest. The Spaniards entered the city as guests, and soon revealed themselves as conquerors. They seized the Emperor Moctezuma. They looted the temples. They desecrated sacred spaces. And when the people rose in anger, the Spaniards answered with violence. But the greatest weapon they brought was not steel. It was disease. Smallpox swept through the empire like a silent fire. It killed warriors, priests, children, rulers, entire families, vanished in days. The Aztecs had no immunity, no defense, no hope. The empire weakened. The Spaniards attacked. The siege of Tenochtitlan was brutal beyond imagination. The canals filled with bodies, the temples burned. The cries of the dying echoed through the streets. A civilization that had stood for centuries collapsed under hunger, disease, and war. On the 13th of August, 1521, the Aztec Empire fell. And from its ashes, a new world was forced into existence. Mexico became New Spain, a colony ruled by the Spanish crown. Indigenous people were forced into labor, tribute, and conversion. Their temples were destroyed. Their gods were outlawed. Their languages were silenced. Their land was taken. A rigid caste system divided society by blood and color. At the top stood the Spaniards. Below them, the Criollos, Spaniards born in the Americas. Below them, the mixed races, and at the bottom, the indigenous people, whose ancestors had once ruled an empire. But even in the darkest centuries of colonial rule, the memory of the old world survived, in stories, in traditions, in resistance, in the quiet, unbroken spirit of the people. The fall of the Aztec Empire was not the end. It was the beginning of a long struggle, a struggle that would one day ignite into revolution. But before independence, Mexico lived in the shadow of conquest, a land where an empire died and a colony was born from its ruins. Next week, keep an eye out for Mexico, the road to independence. Subscribe for more untold histories.